You go, he's gone to a brothel. Like there are, it's a target-rich environment, right? The opposite is being done for Nick Fuentes by his fans. If you see him just online, and this has happened with like the Dan Bilzerians of the world as well, like many other content creators have been able to take advantage of the clip culture. Oh, also, UAE did not mind the 300K dead in Gaza. Of course they don't. So here's what I was going to talk about, like the insidious nature of people taking advantage of the void in discourse from like liberal and left advocates. Well, not left advocates, but like liberal advocates for the Palestinian emancipatory movement, has created this unique media landscape where like Nick Fuentes is coming across as like one of these major anti-Israel voices. And I think he recognizes that because, look, part of the reason why I don't cover Nick Fuentes is one, because he has been for a very long time utterly irrelevant, unfortunately, has been platformed and revitalized his career directly as a consequence of like hanging out with Destiny, who openly talked about how he gave him a lifeline. And then, going all the way to like hanging out with Kanye and even dining with the current president. But ultimately, maybe not just a lifeline, maybe even more than just a lifeline. Anyway, but that's besides the point. So the other reason why I don't, give him any, give him any platform whatsoever on this broadcast is because like he is a skilled orator, a very dangerous and skilled orator who recognizes the media landscape and the media environment. You just don't get it. Epstein was going to de-radicalize his entire audience and instead ended up handing over half of his own and his own kid. I know. Yeah, that was a spectacular failure, by the way, in terms of like what, Epstein was trying to do, right? Like he was like, oh, dude, his audience loved talking about how like, you don't understand, dude. You got to debate this guy. Destiny's just like owning him in the marketplace of ideas. And while doing so, he's just like, destroying. He's destroying him in the marketplace of ideas and making his audience more liberal. And instead of that happening, it turns out his son is now a groyper and a Nick Fuentes acolyte. And many in his community are also in that same group now. I wonder how that happened. What a spectacular failure. It turns out when you get chicken and waffles with the neo-Nazi and you normalize him as just like any other type of content creator, or even routinely say you have much more respect for him because he's at least like honest and organizing for his values, as opposed to Hasan, who is a much more dangerous prospect for an American future, which are things that his community has routinely said. His community actively used to say that this supposedly liberal community actively used to say that I'm a more dangerous figure for American politics than Nick fucking Fuentes. In any case, that's what happens when you're so viciously anti-communist, viciously anti-socialist, that like you're only predisposed with like harming and undermining the left flank of the supposed anti-fascist coalition that's supposed to exist in this goddamn country. Okay? Yeah, they have said that I am literally worse than Adolf Hitler. Just an utterly insane statement. Bro, you are falling off. I know. It's over for me. My career is done. It's devastating. Every weekend, the weekenders don't watch because there's like, no news is not relevant to me. And every weekend, motherfuckers come in here and go, dude, your career is over. And there's not a single person that you can point to that has fallen off to this degree. My fall off is still their greatest viewed streams, unironically. So, having said that, let's get back to the point I was mentioning. So, like I said, he is a very dangerous orator, but a decent room reader as well, which is kind of insane to say about a dude who has in the past, like, obviously denied the Holocaust, and I assume he still does to this day. And not only that, but also has, talked about like miscegenation being equivalent to like a white person marrying or having sex with an animal. Race mixing, he says, is the equivalent of bestiality. And you know, there is a target-rich environment. I mean, he has said a bunch of insane shit, right? But in the last couple of months, especially in the last year or so, he has become this figurehead that is a bold, loud, and proud anti-Israel voice. And in the process, a lot of the MAGA influence, and he's also like criticized Donald Trump a lot. He criticized Donald Trump a lot as well, and he still continues to do so, saying Donald Trump is not aggressive enough with his mass deportation policies, but more so, if you look at this kind of stuff through the clip culture that we exist in, I explained it yesterday as like the reverse, the bizarro HasanAbi hater industrial complex, where like my haters spend a good deal of time clipping me out of context to make me seem like a bad person, to make it seem as though I have like really bad opinions, really reactionary opinions or whatever, right? If you want to present me in a negative light to an audience that is reactionary, you point to some of the jokes that I make about, you know, leftist jokes that I make to say he's being sincere here. He wants to like all white people or whatever. If you want to make me look bad to like a pro-queer audience, you clip a weak moment of mine where I'm yelling at someone and you say he's transphobic. You want to clip me to a feminist audience. You go he's gone to a brothel. Like there are, it's a target-rich environment, right? The opposite is being done for Nick Fuentes by his fans. If you see him just online, and this has happened with like the Dan Bilzerians of the world as well, like many other content creators have been able to take advantage of the clip culture, the clip culture environment that exists by basically presenting themselves as like much more normal political figures that are like, if you watch him off of just clips that his audience is like pumping out on TikTok and on Twitter and whatnot, you would think he's like a left guy, you would think he's like left wing, because like some of his commentary unironically comes across as progressive. And I think it's disingenuous. And I think he's doing that deliberately to basically farm a bunch of liberals who are anti-Israel to see him in a different light. And there are numerous clips like this, one of which I actually literally clocked here, and I sent it to someone just so I could, just so I could show it on stream. Actually, this is my most boomer moment. This clip actually is a perfect example of what I'm talking about, because it features the turning point in it as well. Because if you clip him in the first half, you think he's being progressive. And then in the second half, he actually reveals his true nature. Okay, let's take a look.
Names the Department of Defense to the Department of War. Ooh, because as Trump says, we're not just on defense, we're also on offense. Sounds a lot cooler. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm just getting so sick of the slop, man. I'm done with the slop. Is that all this administration can do? It seems like this administration does two things. It renames existing things, like the Gulf of Mexico, like the Persian Gulf, like military bases, like the Pentagon. It renames things.
Hasan, what the fuck are you doing, bro? Do you not understand what I'm doing here? I'm showing you a clear-cut example of how he presents himself from a clip that actually then shows his true nature, okay? Because if you cut this clip at the halfway point, which many people do, right? Many of his fans do, your takeaway will be very different, okay? Your takeaway will be, oh, this guy seems like he's anti-Trump and he's saying the same shit that I think, right? Because you have to remember, for the average person who is not paying too close attention to whatever the fuck is going on in the realm of politics, especially in our increasingly short attention span economy, you only see people through 30-second clip reflections, okay? I'm explaining to you how propaganda is conducted. This is how historic fascism has operated as well, not with 30-second clips, obviously, but historically, fascist movements have started off masquerading as left populist movements. Left populist movements for who? The designated in-group, okay? Whether it be, ironically enough, Israel in its inception, which was supposed to be this socialist project, but for the chosen people, or whether it be Germany's National Socialist Party, okay? The Nazis wanted to do socialism, but for the Volk, the chosen people, the Aryan people, okay? Except they weren't really invested in socialism at all. They just used the momentum and the popularity, the existing popularity of left populist statements. That's it. It is a way to package a nefarious agenda that is inherently violent and also directly antithetical to any sort of socialist development. Mussolini, yes, Mussolini was literally a Marxist revisionist. Exactly. I'm so annoyed because I want to watch the Mussolini thing that came out. Oh, God, I'm all over the place. There's a Mussolini TV show that came out that's really good apparently, but I can't watch it in America unfortunately without a VPN. The Son of the Century, that tracks his like development, his political development. Okay. Yeah, Mussolini, Son of Century is the show I'm talking about. Anyway, so here, listen to the first half and then listen to the second half. This is the reason why I pulled this clip is because it shows how he presents himself and what his actual real opinions are.
And it polices anti-Semitism. You can't get your FEMA rescue money. You can't get your Harvard grants and loans. You can't get citizenship or a visa in America. Is that all this administration can do? We were promised revolutionary change. We were promised vengeance. We were promised a golden age. And what we're getting is renaming things, and like the ADL is on steroids. The ADL is taking steroids, they're looks maxing. That's all this administration seems to do. Cracker Barrel, who could forget? I mean, think about it. That's all this administration does. They came in, they renamed the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Oh, they renamed the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Gulf. They should have named it the Gulf of Israel, right? Changed the names of the military bases back to Fort Bragg. And now this, they took the Cracker Barrel logo, brought it back to the original. Now we're changing the Department of Defense to the Department of War. And look, if the Trump administration was actually doing things, this would be a cool bonus.
So, before you get to the last 30 seconds,
look,
the first 2 minutes of this 2-minute and 34-second video is, if it cuts away at that point, the first 2 minutes of this 2-minute and 34-second video comes across like he's anti-Trump, and he's saying that like the revolutionary changes that he promised, like uplifting American lives and all this stuff is just fake, and he's just simply pro-Israel, and he's just jiggling keys in front of his base of support. And a lot of those clips, a lot of his community recognize now that there is a major audience for this kind of commentary coming from a guy who is a fallen fan of Donald Trump. Okay? If you watch the first 2 minutes, you think, what the fuck's going on? And I see this a lot in the comments. People going, oh my God, I can't believe I'm agreeing with Nick Fuentes. I can't believe I'm agreeing with Nick Fuentes. I'm a black liberal and I'm agreeing with Nick Fuentes. What the hell is happening? Okay? That's what's going on here. He has been able to capture the attention of so many people. Him, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, many of these Republican right-wing commentary people on the independent media side have been able to capture the attention of so many liberals, okay? And that comes from a void in the left flank, and it also stems from the reality that we are too predisposed with fighting against one another instead of ensuring that we have some semblance of messaging discipline on this issue, and also partially because the most moneyed side of the liberal media ecosystem is entirely pro-Israel, okay? So when you do have a guy who is able to cut through the noise and develop a major audience online, someone like myself, they get tarred and feathered by dumbfuck liberals and also even dumbfuck leftists who believe the dumbfuck liberals and the dumbfuck Republicans. Okay? This is something that I tried to explain to people in the past where I was like, look, liberals, you did it. You did it. You successfully undermined your left flank. And in the process of doing that, of course, someone right-wing was going to rise up to the occasion and come across as a completely normal centrist, right? That's the Asmongold phenomena. The most consequential aspect of like the destinies of the world consistently coming after me for their own personal narcissistic vengeance quest has made it so that I have so many ridiculous claims that are completely made up about me swirling around in the ecosystem for all of the dumbfuck apolitical people to tune into with a network of slop tubers that are constantly pumping out this kind of content that ultimately people that don't actually get any sort of critical examination of their commentary or their worldview get to rise up to the top. This is part of the reason why I have regularly maintained this idea that unless it's like literally someone being pro-Israel, I'm just not going to spend a whole deal of time attacking even liberal content creators. Okay? Imagine thinking Nick Fuentes is a centrist. I'm not saying that. I'm not even remotely presenting it as such. But this is a byproduct of having a message void for the left and for the liberals in general in terms of just like always unconditionally and unyieldingly, uncompromisingly being coming at this issue from a pro-Palestinian side. When liberals are more predisposed with attacking their left flank for demonstrating true anti-fascist principles, then of course someone who presents themselves as a centrist like Asmongold is going to rise to the occasion and actually unironically build a momentum and an audience off of said liberals who now tune into him to think, well, he's at least better than Hasan. He's not a dangerous radical like Hasan is. Meanwhile, Asmongold is also a pipeline to Nick Fuentes. This is it. So this message isn't for whoever you think it's for. It's not for like the type content creators. Okay, those guys are never going to change their behavior. This is for their audiences who do actually care about growing fascism in this country and have just been deluded into thinking that the most successful way to combat it is by attacking the left flank of the Democratic Party and assuming that people who are critical of the supposed left flank of American politics are actually critical because they have some sinister purpose behind it, because they want Donald Trump to win or some shit. Okay? Because if you consistently consider, I mean, this has historically happened post-World War II. It has happened leading up to World War II when fascist movements are growing. Liberals consistently engaging in appeasement for growing fascist movements out of fear that they're going to lose power, lose their grip on power, end up offering amenities and offering power to the fascists because they think they can just like wield some semblance of wield some power to I guess like maybe prevent full-blown fascist takeover. And it is a failure. It was a failure before World War II, and it has been an abject failure after World War II. That's why you see so many anti-communists end up directly, like anti-communist liberals, like Canada is a great example of this, like directly becoming a critical supply line for consistent fascist movements, because who are the most vicious post-World War II? Who were the most vicious and most successful anti-communists? Fascists were. The ones that weren't, or the ones that weren't arrested post-World War II, they were immediately activated by liberals who wanted to engage in a Cold War, by liberal capitalist democracies that wanted to engage in a Cold War against the real scary enemy and keep the real scary enemy, the USSR, at bay. Okay? This is real dangerous shit. Now that I showed you the first 2 minutes, let's see what his actual opinions are.
If the Trump administration was actually doing things, this would be a cool bonus. And maybe you could make a defense for it. No pun intended. Maybe there's a case to be made for this. But if you're not doing anything, like take a look around. The deportation's not happening. The legal immigration will continue, 600,000 Chinese students. War, if anything, it's getting worse. We do this every night. I mean, you get it. The state of this administration, it's not making as much progress as it needs to be.
Yeah. Plays the first minutes, then you ask for 15 minutes before playing the last 15 seconds. Okay, brother. Yeah, I wonder why I did that. I did that to literally show you how this nefarious, cynical propaganda works. Okay? The first 2 minutes of it is all things that prime a liberal audience into finding Nick Fuentes totally appropriate, because his criticisms of Donald Trump are valid here in the first 2 minutes. Okay? The last 30 seconds, however, show his true perspective. Oh, Trump is not serious enough about the mass deportations. You pause to explain, people yell at you. If you play without commenting, people yell at you. You cannot win. I know, it's stupid. So that's it. So many of you are proving why Nick Fuentes is getting popular because you're so fucking TikTok brain you can't function past 5 minutes on a single topic. Yep. And there are a million different videos like this all over TikTok. His fans are basically blasting this shit all over the timeline, all up and down the timeline, because they recognize that there aren't that many skilled orators that are actively communicating how fucked up the Trump administration is, especially with its like undying loyalty to Israel. Okay? And they are presenting Nick Fuentes as like an anti-Trump possible progressive figure. It's crazy. Meanwhile, I don't think his opinions have changed at all. This is what I mean when I say the danger of like allowing Tucker Carlson all the way back in 2016. I wrote about this extensively. I talked about this extensively. Liberals were so predisposed with attacking the Bernie Sanderses and the left flank of their own party's base of support for being true progressives on a lot of economic issues, created an environment where there was a void in the discourse from the left flank, and this is broad. When I say left flank, I don't mean like literally these guys are leftists. I just mean like to the left of the Republican Party on the media ecosystem. There were no voices that were actually channeling a true, earnest, economic populist message. So Tucker Carlson took advantage of that on Fox News every night and presented himself as one of the only voices that was actually channeling left-wing economic populism. For years, he did this. Okay? For years, he did this. And a similar thing is now happening with Israel. Okay? That's it. There's a reason why people think like, well, some of the most, visible, some of the most like, some of the loudest voices for Palestinian emancipation are right-wingers and far-right people. A lot of liberals also have this idea that they, these guys can be fixed, Meanwhile, they don't realize that in that process, they themselves are actually leaning into the nefarious part of his agenda, the nationalist message. Okay?
Yeah, those people are just freaks. The whole
look,
anyone that has any genuine racial hatred, we have to just say there's something wrong with you. I understand not wanting to live around black people. I get it. And I understand when you see what black people do, some of them, I understand hating that. But this whole autistic racial, actual racialism, actual racial militant hatred, it is like a freak show, because that comes from an emotional place. It is one thing to say that, there are whites and blacks, and black people clearly are not on our level of development, and that's why they're struggling. That's why they're not integrating well, and that's why there are these problems. It's one thing to say that clinically, and it's one thing to see what they do and get frustrated by it and get angry about it. It's a whole other thing to have this persistent antipathy for vast groups of people. That is just a low IQ, a dysfunctional thing. And everything, oh, well, but that doesn't make you mad. It's yeah, it makes me mad. I'm not filled with racial hatred for an entire group. Even the Jews, even the Jews, as much as justified as it would be. No, you know, but even like I do actually like a lot of Jewish people. Like I even though Jewish people have ruined my life in many ways, and like they do horrible things, I don't have a hatred for them as a group, and I could say nice things about them, you know. But that comes from being a Christian. That's the kind of peace, and that's the kind of disposition that you can only have if you love God, if you truly have love in your heart for people. And it's no coincidence. It's always these pagans that harbor this intense animosity all the time. And if you have that, you really got to get over that. And that doesn't mean you need to stop being racist. It doesn't mean you got to stop being a quote unquote racist, but you got to let go of wrath. You have to let go of anger. You can't let that define you.
Yeah. He's like, his racial animosity stems from a totally reasonable anger that he feels, born out of maybe even the structural undermining of black people. Like, do you understand how he is nefariously packaging just like regular ass racist opinions, but recalculating and restructuring it in a way where it like is supposed to make sense to the normie, to the average normie, while simultaneously casting people who have racial animus for, you know, as he calls it, like autistic racial purity and race realism opinions. He's saying in this video, in this short video, he basically says that black people are undermined structurally, and it creates an environment where like they end up behaving in violent ways, and that creates resentment, and that's an understandable resentment to have. Okay? Of course, ultimately, this is not, yeah, I mean, ultimately, he doesn't even believe that. He does believe the racial purity politics. He's a fucking Nazi, right? Like he is still saying that there is a genetic component associated with it, but you shouldn't be super mad ultimately about it. Like this is why he's a dangerous propagandist ultimately, because he is trying to normalize the eugenicist perspectives that he has in a way that can go either way, where you can just like where he gives himself like a level of plausible deniability by saying like, I'm not like those kinds of racists, when he very clearly is those kinds of racists, and his entire community is that kind of racist. And of course, the hallmark of Republican thought is once again always saying a whole bunch of debunked and insane nonsense, and simultaneously packaging it as common sense, right? One example that immediately comes to mind is like one of these fucking Nazis on Twitter that went viral a while back, which is, of course, it's always happening, unfortunately, was the idea that someone was trying to like do this like normalized racism argument about like, who even actually is fond of their black neighbors, right? And I think it initially went viral. One of your bots banned me for a reason. I just disagreed. Dude, please stop. I don't care, okay? And it wasn't like you got literally banned and unbanned. You got timed out, man. Shut the fuck up. You said L-take, bro. Nick Fuentes is in his own circle. You can't compare him with anyone mentioned. Just stop. It doesn't matter. You got timed out. Please stop being such whiny fucking crybabies, man. I'm trying to make a broader point here, and I can't. I have to deal with like everyone's own personal fucking me bullshit. Okay. Oh my God, my voice is not being heard right now in this very moment. I got timed out for 600 seconds. Unacceptable. You got timed out for 10 minutes. Calm down. God. We're talking about the oppression of governments. We're talking about like growing fascist movements in here. And you're literally thinking like the major oppression that I'm facing here is that a moderator timed me out for 10 minutes. Shut up. Jesus Christ. Anyway, take a breath. The point I was making was that there was a Twitter post that went viral where it was like, oh, people that say they don't have like racist opinions of like never lived around black people. If you lived around black people, you would immediately realize why people hold on to these like racist resentments that people call racist, but they're not, all this shit. And it went viral on Twitter first in like the neo-Nazi circles. And then people started like quote retweeting it and being like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? Because like, while something might come across as like common sense, depending on how insane your immediate circle online is. And while certain kinds of narratives can be boosted by other people, especially at a time when like there's unprecedented virality for right-wing movements on Twitter, okay, ultimately in the real world, the common sense narrative is not living around black people is a terrifying prospect and it's really fucked up, okay? Especially for diverse environments like major cities in this fucking country where you do live around a lot of black and brown people in a diverse environment. It's so stupid. It's an incredibly stupid statement. You're childish. You're like a baby. You're afraid of people that you have never actually lived around from afar. Because if you did, you would realize that there is no genuine resentment or fear against your fucking neighbors. And the same goes for undocumented migrants as well. People think like undocumented migrants are like a special subcategory because they don't even realize that they're, you know, living around undocumented migrants with regular frequency. You know, they're working in the kitchen, they're working at the grocery store, they're working at the poultry facility down the street, you know. They're a part of your community. It's just that you have never encountered someone and know that they are undocumented. So you have this like false notion that they're all scary. They're all scary. A fear of the unknown. And the internet is bricking your brain. That's it. And many of these issues would be solved if you actually did live around these people. Okay? But my point is, ultimately, clips that you see of far-right neo-Nazi style figures like Nick Fuentes are becoming increasingly more dangerous at a time when there is a real need by the left, by liberals, for bold anti-Trump, anti-fascist voices, and a skilled orator is capable of taking advantage of that void in discourse by routinely undermining Trump, routinely attacking Trump from an understandable perspective, from a real perspective, from a real genuine and valid point of critique to draw the attention and gain popularity and gain charitability amongst a broader audience, to then slam in and normalize this somewhat effective, dangerous race realist framework. Okay? That's it. You filled out void, bro. That's you. You're just unk. And I think that's why Nick comes across a Gen Z better. I think a lot of Gen Z's first interaction with politics has come from like apolitical slop tuber shit. And those apolitical slop tubers who present themselves as like centrist liberals are also more far right than they actually present themselves. They're also capable of leaning on pre-existing systems of violence that people have normalized. You know, homeless people are scary, dangerous, violent. Undocumented migrants are scary, dangerous, violent. There's a real crime problem. The Democrats are not addressing it. All this stuff that literally led to the Trump victory. And when their first foray into politics is like, there's a fucking leftist guy out there that's a radical piece of shit, they go, oh yeah, fuck this guy. I'm writing him off. I'm not going to listen to what he has to say. After years and years of fucking this kind of commentary just circulating all around the apolitical drama slop tuber sphere. Of course, a guy that hasn't gotten that level of attention and that level of critical lens, who is also a skilled orator who can read the room, okay, will then turn around and look for alternatives that they think are better versions, better speakers. That's it. Please stop sending me this. I'm not going to click on this, okay? I'm not. I'm not going to click on this link. Please stop spamming it. Tommy Vitor from Pod Save has talked about this. You should talk to him. I do talk to him about this as well as other shit.